Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a reaction video on Colonel Douglas Macgregor talking about the Iran-Israel conflict.
Well, we are committed to action against Iran. It's not a question of if that will happen, but when that will happen. I think there has been a slight delay in order to assemble forces, air and naval, because that's effectively what President Trump is pinning his hopes on, American air and naval power. Now understand that we have three branches of government in the United States. One is the media, the mainstream media. They are 100% in Israel's pocket. Then you have Congress and the White House. They are 100% in Israel's pocket. And then finally you have the military-industrial sector led by the retired and active four-stars and their shareholders. They are 100% in Israel's pocket. So there is no debate about what will happen. We're going to launch, I would imagine, airstrikes involving primarily B-2, B-1 bombers.
So those three branches of government that he detailed, when you say something like this, even if it's factual, even if you have the receipts, even if the proof is easy to find online, even you don't even have to read books, you can just Google stuff. Despite the fact that, especially Google, is heavily under control by a lot of the same people, much of the time, and yet still they accuse you of anti-Semitism. It's like saying, you know, because such and such demographic is more represented in a particular area. I mean, I don't know, I can't think of an example about another group at the moment, but make up your own, think of something. You mention it and suddenly it's anti that group. Why? I guess because it doesn't suit them, because it exposes the fact that they do have the power, okay? And they can use that, they can wield that power in order to basically get America to fight their wars for them. All right? This is what he's saying here. This is what he's detailing, and I think he's correct.
Delivering very, very devastating, precise munitions, ostensibly to destroy the underground facilities that the Iranians have, and also, I think, to pursue this illusory regime change approach, and will kill more people in Tehran and other places that we think are going to be, essential parts of the national leadership. The problem with all of this is air and naval power does not win wars. It never has. Secondly, it's assuming that Iran is weak and already in a state of disarray. The opposite is the case. Israel.
Iran is not weak at all. That's right. That's exactly the problem here. And lately, like even a few hours ago, I think it was, when Putin made a statement that he's going to back Iran. Okay? So this is like Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini all over again. Okay? We're seeing it happen, well, not all over again, that was a wrong phrase, but you know what I'm saying. We're seeing the third war, the Third World War that he predicted in that letter. I mean, I don't know if that was a hoax or not. Whoever actually wrote it, the point is they were prophetic. Okay? So whoever this cabal may be, they seem to have wanted to engineer three great wars in order to, maybe they think it's a good thing, maybe they think in their distorted view, in their warped thinking, they probably honestly believe that it's for the good. They do it to accelerate the evolution of mankind, like, you know, the order ab chaos thing, order out of chaos, that from Sonic motto, which is not, it's just a spiritual truth, an occult truth that you can, that order comes out of chaos. Okay, the end result of chaos is a new order. Okay, the system, the human being, whatever it is, the country, but the system, because a human being is a system. So the system reorganizes itself again in a new way. So it's like a new order. Okay, you either emerge stronger from a crisis or weaker. All right. So what they basically want to do, because I've been looking into this for many years, trying to understand how these people work in the dark lodges. I'm talking about when I'm saying dark lodges, like the Freemasonic type of groups, but the negative ones that are anti-humanity, that are plotting against the large masses of humanity, right? So what they're doing with these crises in general, but particularly the three great wars, which are the most devastating, the biggest crises you can possibly create for the world, is that their idea, their view is that they want to shock the world into change. Okay, this is what they want to do. They want to shock the world into, because the idea is, I mean, it's very logical. It's a common sense thing to predict that eventually the planet is gonna unify. Okay, like 100, whether it's 100 years in the future, 500 years in the future, we're gonna end up, becoming kind of like, the one world government thing that the new world order people are trying to push. That will eventually organically happen. Okay, so that's common sense that's going to happen. The point is whether it's going to happen organically on its own in a positive, organic, positive, non-forced way, or some shadowy cabal or cabals that are colluding together are going to shock us into, kind of like force us into unifying as a planet, okay, creating one world government and so on, world army, global currency, all that stuff, that the conspiracy theory types talk about, the conspiracists. So that was bound to happen, of course. Okay, you look at Greece, my country, right? It was city-states. They never considered, for many hundreds of years, they never considered themselves. They never called themselves Greeks. They never really. They realized that they were kind of like loosely the same tribe, but they were just different city-states. Kind of like how the Europeans are all European. Okay, they're all like Indo-European white people, but we all have our separate countries. Okay, so that was, Greece was in the micro, and then on a larger scale of that, we have the planet now. What is it? About how many different countries are there? Like something under 200, about 180 or something like that. I don't know the exact number. But just as it happened with the Greek city-states, they eventually understood that they're like, okay, we can kind of join together as one country, and we can all call ourselves the Hellenes, the Greeks. Okay, this eventually will happen on a larger scale. It's going to happen planet-wide. All right, with all the countries doing a similar thing. Air conditioning. Yeah. So the smart people, the smart and educated people of the world know this. Okay, and you don't have to be very smart actually to extrapolate that out into a few centuries from now, and predict with pretty high accuracy that something like that, a similar thing, will happen, but on a global scale. But this negative cabal, this anti-human element of the mystery schools and the Masonic style lodges, okay, which we collectively call the cabal in the past several years, that's the common name, label that we use for these groups. So the cabal, capital C, thinks that it's probably in their, I mean, maybe they're just trying to justify their own selfish actions, but the point is that they probably most likely think that they're helping us. They're helping humanity unite as one and they're doing it quicker. Okay, because they're like, by the time these stupid masses get with the program, okay, we're never going to unite as one species, as one planet. So they think that doing these three, because every time after each great war, there was always a step towards more and more centralization and globalization. Right? After World War One, they created League of Nations. That didn't really work out. After World War Two, it was the UN. The notorious United Nations. And now, God knows what exactly they want and what's going to happen after the World War III. Let's knock on wood. Hopefully it's not nuclear, but it probably will be. So we're basically now, I didn't want to believe it. I thought we had transcended that timeline, that negative timeline of the Third World War. I thought we had evolved enough. I thought Trump was literally a trump card, because a person's name, just like their numerology or their astrology or whatever, your name is very meaningful, very powerful. Okay, so Trump, okay, is literally the trump card. It's no accident he has that name. So I thought he's the trump card. A lot of people like me believed it, but now I've been seeing on the Twitters a couple of days ago, even Alex Jones, his biggest supporter on earth, is kind of starting to turn against him. He posted a meme that had like an AI image of Trump. His face was kind of like a combination of what you would get if you would combine Trump and George Bush Jr. And he was like, we thought we were getting this, but have we got this? Like showing the other image, it was like a Trump George Bush combo. All right, so that goes to show you that even someone who at their core deep down are authentic, okay, that's what I believe about Trump. I mean, it was clear in the first several years of his, when he started about 10 years ago, it was authentic. But now he's basically proving that what the great Colonel Macgregor here is saying is true, that it's basically a uniparty. It's probably not entirely, but there's a lot of control by Israel and the Zionists, particularly in the foreign policy department. Okay, as far as the final word on who's going to who's going to green light the wars in the Middle East, it's always Israel / the Zionists / however you want to, whatever label, however you want to call it. Okay, APAC, whatever. All right. So it's not anti-Semitic to say so. It's just we have the receipts. We see it over and over again. It happened with Iraq. It's happening again now. It's the same playbook. I wouldn't be surprised if the October 7 attack was actually a false flag perpetrated by Israel, or more like they let it happen. Okay, or perhaps they even had people, because Mossad is a very good intelligence agency, probably second only to the CIA in ability to deceive. All right, so maybe they even had agents within the Hamas or whatever. And I don't know. This can get so complex, right? But they either let it happen, or they had men inside the opposing team that made it happen. Okay, because look at what they've gotten after the October 7 attack. All right, basically everything that Netanyahu has wanted, October 7 has allowed him, has given him like the free pass to go on attack like dominoes, like one after the other, their enemies that they've been wanting to take out in the Middle East for decades now, with the final domino being Iran, of course, their greatest adversary in the region. I mean, I'm not pro-Iran, like I do like the Iranian culture and people, but the current leadership ever since 1979 has been problematic, obviously. But as a culture, as a people, I have a soft spot for them, for some reason. A lot of people do, I think.
is in very serious trouble. They embarked on this war without understanding what they were doing. And I think Ben Gvir said that by accident in public when he mentioned, we didn't appreciate the power of the Iranian missile arsenal. Well, that's an understatement. They can't stop much of anything. Iron Dome has turned out to be a sieve. Iron Dome, that is. And we're not going to be able to do as much damage.
It's interesting that, because at this point there's no point trying to debunk or deny the Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini. I'll try to get a link to that for some of the people who might not know what that is. I'll have a link to it underneath in the description box. It's a fascinating document. Anyway, so when it's detailing how the third and final conflict is going to go down, he specifically says something like, and we will, I'm paraphrasing, but it's pretty close, we will exacerbate the tensions between the political Zionism and the Muslim world, by placing the state of Israel right in the middle, in the mouth of the lion, like in the worst possible, like that place. I mean, I understand, and I'm not I do understand that the Old Testament is primarily a historical document. A lot of NPCs don't understand this, but you don't have to be like a Bible bashing, Bible belt person who believes in basically the normie Christian types. You don't have to be that to understand that there's a lot of truths in both the Old and the New Testament. Okay, but especially the Old Testament is a historically accurate document, right? So I'm not denying that that geographical location actually is their ancestral land, because I can get into this whole. I'll probably make a separate video about this one, because it's a good time now during this period to make videos on this subject. But because I have the Greek connection, Greece is kind of like the Israel equivalent for the Greeks, for the Greek diaspora. Okay, so let's say, because you can tell from the accent that fortunately or unfortunately I have also lived in Australia. I was actually born there. So I've lived a big chunk of my adult life and part of my childhood there as well. So let's say for whatever reason I had to flee, whether it was I was not happy or something or other, whatever it may have been, and there was no such thing as Greece. I was just stuck. I had to just stay in Australia no matter what. Okay, so I understand. I'm thinking, okay, what about the Jews? If they were in a similar position, like they had no Israel to go to, if they wanted to. Okay, so on that level, I do understand that it's actually their ancestral land. Okay, the people that say that that's not true, they just don't know. A lot of them, they might be just anti-religious or atheists and think that the Old Testament, the Bible, just made up. All right. So these people don't know what they're saying. But the point, though, is that it is in the worst place possible that they put it. They could have picked. They had other options as well. I don't remember off the top of my head now, but they had a couple of Madagascar or something. There were some other options. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments about that one that I mentioned. But they had options, and they didn't necessarily have to go there. But there was a larger game being played. Certain powers in the Black Lodges and so on, and particularly like in the British Empire, in the Anglosphere, like the elites in the British Empire, that also colluded with the Rothschild banking clan, which controlled the bank, or has been controlling the Bank of England for many centuries now. So those forces got together and decided, okay, we're going to put Israel in the worst possible place. We're going to found that nation in a place where there's going to be guaranteed conflict that will never end, and which will eventually, and we're going to exacerbate this conflict, like I was saying before about the quote that Albert Pike says in his letter to Mazzini. And the second part of that quote is, and they'll mutually annihilate each other. They will mutually destroy each other, and then the entire world will be completely exhausted from this. All right, because everyone's going to be involved. Like, all eyes are on the Middle East now, whether we fucking like it or not. We have to constantly think about and concentrate on this thing, and it's just draining our loosh. It's draining our spiritual energy, just our vitality, just constantly thinking about this thing and watching. Like, you turn on YouTube and 90% of the videos are just about this topic, okay, lately, and it's going to be for quite a while to come now. And the end goal, of course, is for both of them to mutually destroy each other. So this whole idea that the right-wingers in America have of Israel prevailing or so on, or the leftoids thinking the opposite, that it's going to be destroyed, and, you know, the noble Iranians that have never been involved in terrorist acts at all or anything of the sort, you know, they're just angels that have been demonized for no reason. I mean, because both sides do that, okay? The leftists always deny that the Muslim side does anything wrong, and the right-wingers basically think Israel is the next thing the next best thing to slice bread. Both of those opinions are BS, in my opinion, and I don't adhere to any of them. I'm in the middle, okay? So, you know, although I'm right-wing, I'm not going to just blindly support Israel because, like that BS that Ted Cruz said in that recent Tucker interview, saying that he, you know, supports Israel because Sunday school told him to. I never believed that it was that bad until I saw him say that. I've heard about the fact that a lot of these Ted Cruz types, that's actually their motivation behind it. I'm like, really? They're that dumb? Well, turns out they are that dumb. I mean, he said it clearly in the interview, okay? You've all watched it. Well, I mean, you can go and find it if you haven't watched it yet, but it's everywhere, on Twitter especially. So, you know, this is going to be, it looks like that they're both going to mutually destroy each other, okay? And then it's going to lead to a larger conflict, that it's going to exhaust us financially, mentally, psychologically, everything, okay? Probably going to have a large population reduction again, just like we had in the first two world wars. And then God knows what they're planning on doing after that. They're probably going to say, well, you know, now we probably should create a global, like a one world government, and sing kumbaya and be all be friends, and so we can avoid any of this happening again in the future. All right, I don't know what their stance on nuclear weapons is going to be after this, because I'm sure that nuclear weapons will be used at some point, especially considering the fact that Israel has the Samson option, and they are more or less a psychopathic state. I mean, judging by their behavior in the past few decades, well, ever since their founding, really. And you're like, well, these people are very capable of actually implementing the Samson option. All right, so either way you look at it, we're screwed. But, you know, at least while we're still around, okay, while things are still haven't gotten that bad yet, I think at the very least we should be allowed to just let it all out and just criticize these people to our heart's content and just say it like it is without fear of being cancelled anymore. Because, you know, why? It's insane, somebody being cancelled by saying that, listen, there's this psychopathic state there that is literally putting the entire planet in danger of a nuclear holocaust. So criticizing that is anti-something or other? Are you kidding me? The survival of the entire human race is at stake. I'm pretty sure we should be allowed to at least criticize a behavior that could put us could send us to the brink of extinction, basically. Or at least, extinct about a third or half of humanity. Pretty sure we should be allowed to actually point that out and criticize it and try to create awareness about it in the hopes that it potentially might not happen, or we might avert it, or it might not happen as bad as it could have been, which I doubt it, because now this Pandora's box has been opened. It's not going to be shut, but you're trying to kill me. At the very least, let me complain about it, and don't cancel me for doing so. All right?
Damage as we think. I think the integrated air defenses will have an impact. Can they prevent everything from getting through? No, that's impossible. But I think it's going to retard the effort that we're about to undertake. The other thing is we have over 40,000 troops on the ground in the region. I imagine that once we attack, the Iranians will feel obligated to attack those targets. So we could lose a lot of people. We don't have the air defense network in place to stop much of it. Our air defenses have always been woefully behind the rest of the armed forces in terms of their development and investment. When I was in the Army, where you have much of your ground-based air defense, we always used to refer to them as the red-headed stepchildren. They never had enough. But we, on the other hand, had never really faced an enemy that had tremendous missile and air power. And Iran definitely has that. So I think we're at the beginning of a long war. There will be no sudden surrender by the Iranians to Donald Trump, no matter what he's being told. And I think he's very foolish to believe any of the people talking to him, because these are the same people that urged us to become involved in Ukraine and sponsor the Ukrainian battering.
Yeah, Ukraine, that's another one. That's another rabbit hole I could go down and be talking about forever. Maybe I shouldn't in this video, because I don't want to get derailed. And I get triggered every time I hear about Ukraine, because it's like, I'm not anti-Ukrainian. I mean, I don't like Zelensky, but I'm not anti the Ukrainian people. I know a girl actually here who's, I think she's been here since she was a little girl. Lovely girl, she lives here, She speaks broken Greek, but, she's like, I'm from Ukraine. I'm like, oh, what do you think of Zelensky? And she was laughing, And I have a soft spot for Russians, of course. Vodka is my favorite spirit as well, coincidentally. But and so many hundreds of thousands, close to 1 million Ukrainians have died, and Ukrainian men. I mean, what is this? Why? Someone is doing this, and it's not for the reasons you're being told. That's all I can say about that one.
Ram against Russia, telling us all back in February of 2022, March, April, May, June, July, and onward, oh, the Russians are incompetent. The Russians are running out of ammunition. The Russians don't have enough missiles. The Russian soldiers don't want to fight, on and on and on. Well, that was all nonsense, lies. Most of what is being heard in the mainstream media about Iran is also one big lie. Iran is not about to surrender. It's not going to crumble. There will be no uprising to remove the regime. So, fasten your seatbelts and get ready. This is going to go on. And on. And on until Israel is practically destroyed.
Yeah, basically what I was saying before, but it looks like that, but like, it's pretty much going to be like a mutual destruction, mutually assured destruction. Okay, probably not as dramatic as we think, or as I'm presenting it, or as it's been suggested in the segment, in the letter, Albert Pike letter to Mazzini, the section about the Third World War, where he says they're going to mutually exhaust and destroy each other, or whatever. The Muslim world and political Zionism in the Middle East. But I don't think either party is going to emerge the victor. It's not going to be like just one of them being completely victorious and the other being blown off the map. Okay, so both sides are going to sustain heavy losses on all levels. Okay.
Then the question is, will the Israelis turn to a nuclear weapon? That, of course, is the last thing in the world they should do. Simply because if they do use a nuclear weapon, it's something.
But they probably will. I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, I hope I am, but they are the most likely state on earth to actually do that, okay? To press the button. It's just, I'm just seeing the patterns of how they behaved thus far, all right? And especially under Netanyahu's leadership.
Point in desperation, others in the region will suddenly produce nuclear weapons that will be used against them. And of course, that is a Pandora's box that no one in their right mind should want to open. But I don't think any of this has been carefully considered.
And that is a major concern, right? Because when I'm hearing Israel's defense minister saying Tehran will burn, I'm wanting to know, okay, what does he have in store? What is he thinking about? And I know that that's something that you've been really highlighting when it comes to the U.S. is that we, well, as a country, don't necessarily look at future planning, right? Long term, what are our goals here? Instead, we're just running into this war, and exactly as you were noting, the expectation that Iran is just magically going to crumble, we're not seeing any actual evidence of that. So what does that mean for where the U.S. stands and really how much it's willing to get involved here? Because some of the statements we're seeing from Trump, it's clear that he's getting very frustrated, right? When he's tweeting out unconditional surrender, or he's calling for the evacuation immediately of Tehran, a city of around 10 million people. But beyond that,
That's crazy. That's completely crazy that he's saying that.
I'm also wondering, okay, what does this mean for what the U.S. is willing to get into, especially when it comes to a president who campaigned so heavily on this promise of no new wars?
Well, whatever he campaigned for, remember he's entirely beholden to his real masters, who are the people that provided him with the money to seize the White House. And we know who they are. That is the class of billionaires like the
This is the crux of this video here.
Adelsons and others. And the Jewish billionaires that fund the lobby and helped him to gain the White House now want to be repaid in kind. So I don't think he has much choice. What he's done, though, is that he's listened, as I pointed out before, to the same poisonous voices that took us into Ukraine, that created this terrible monster in Ukraine and then created the war that followed, that we have lost, that the Ukrainians have lost. Now, for some reason, he's allowed these people to convince him that we can walk in, bully, and pulverize our way to success in Iran. I think part of him likes to bully. He certainly thinks bullying tactics work, and I think it's based on his business experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. He's right about that fact about the bullying thing. I mean, I've always thought it was fun, just watching him, bully Adam Schiff and people like that, and making all these nicknames for them on Twitter. But I can kind of understand why his opponents, Donald Trump's opponents that is, were weary of someone with his temperament being given basically access to the nuclear codes. All right, I'm not saying that he's not fit for it. I mean, I'm a massive Trump fan. Well, I have been until very very recently anyway. But yeah, that bullying tendency, it might, I don't know. Look, I'm not happy with the situation, with the way he's handling it. But at the same time, I mean, let's face it, it is also true. I mean, it's not a lie, this whole thing about death to America that they say in Iran. This is true, because there are separate instances, videos and so on, of them saying things like that, even in their own parliament and whatever. There was a video a few years ago of them trying to burn the American flag with a lighter in parliament, and it didn't work, and it was like a comical moment. But they really, that's their belief, that's their ideology. Okay, they think America is the great Satan and Israel is the little Satan. So I'm not really taking either sides, the Muslim world or political Zionism, to use the terms of Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini, but it's just that it is a fact that Netanyahu struck first in this case, and it was very deceptive, and Trump was in on it as well. They pretended they were having negotiations, and then they attacked him a couple of days before their next talk. Okay, the attack was on Thursday, and I believe their next talks were going to be on the following Sunday. Okay, so it was very deceptive. If you enjoy the content of this channel, then there's a good chance you'll also like my fantasy book, Lifting the Curse Volume 1, Guardian of the Magic. Set in the modern day, it's full of action, fantasy, and page-turning conspiracy thriller. It even has numerous references to real-life geopolitical events and conspiracy theories, including a somewhat prophetic mention of the current 2025 Iran-Israel conflict.
But ultimately, I think it's a serious mistake, and it's not going to work. And the question is going to be, all right, we've done this for X number of days, we've committed all these aircraft, all these missiles, all these weapons, now what? You know, the absence of strategy results in you arriving in a place like Stalingrad or Quang Tri in Vietnam in 1968 or 69, and then you say, where am I? What am I doing? What's the point? What are we achieving? He's not asking those questions, and he shouldn't be listening to the people that are talking to him, to be perfectly blunt. But again, he has to rationalize it based on the campaign contributions and what he owes those who helped him gain the White House. It's going to.
It's a very sad reality. Okay. And like I said a bit earlier, I didn't want to admit it, or maybe I couldn't see it. Maybe I didn't think it was true at all. Like, because until like a week ago, until this thing happened, the attack, the first strike that Israel made against Iran. All right, so Trump was singing a different tune until then, but now it's like it's the Bush administration all over again. Okay. And it shows, it's just, I mean, what more do you want? What more do you want? I mean, it sticks out like a neon sign that, like I said earlier, at least insofar as the the foreign policy is concerned, total Israel control, Israeli Jewish control, okay? I mean, it's not, how is it, I mean, is it anti-bluism to say that this case is blue? It's just, okay, my eyes can see it, it's blue. And I'm just saying that, oh, this is a blue case. All right. Well, all the people that funded him are the people that he says they are. So why is that anti-whatever? He's just stating facts, all right? So fuck the people who try to gaslight us into not actually calling him out.
To fail. This is not going to work. And then the question is, how much further do you go? I don't think we can afford to go much further. And if you look right now at the price of oil, what is it, $75 a barrel? I expect that the Iranians will prevent anyone from moving through the straits unless they authorize it. They've essentially published an order saying if you're not authorized to go through these straits, face the consequences. We'll stop you or sink you. Are we going to sail most of the U.S. Army into the Persian Gulf? I don't think so. Most of the U.S. Navy. But I think we're going to sit offshore. We're going to hurl bombs and missiles at people. Historically, it doesn't make much difference. I mean, I watched this back in 1981 and 82 in Lebanon. We had a battleship at that point. It was lobbing 16-inch rounds. Nobody ashore really cared. Didn't make any difference. Didn't change anything. Ultimately, we lost all these Marines in that barracks, stupidly, pointlessly, in a place where they had no business.
They're just goyim. They're expendable. They're just cannon fodder. Who cares, right?
Being and accomplished nothing. Ronald Reagan, wised up quickly and said, "We're out," and left. Smart move. He got out. He didn't want to be dragged into this morass. But we're not led by Ronald Reagan. He may not have been brilliant, but he was rational. I don't think we're being led by rational people. I think it's a combination of arrogance.
Really? He thinks Reagan was not brilliant? I'm not disagreeing. I don't know. I'm not a politician, but I don't know. I'm a big Reagan fan, so anyway. I guess this guy, he's worked with these people. He's more of an insider than I am, so if you say so. But yeah, Reagan was great, and Trump was great till about a week ago.
Arrogance, wishful thinking, and self-delusion. So we're on a bad path. Now, when will people pay attention to this? When the gas costs $7 a gallon. When the supply chains break down. When you can't get something to eat. When you can't do whatever it is that you want to do. That's when Americans will become interested. Now, what happens across our country? Well, we've got a lot of problems.
And people in general. Okay, Americans are more apathetic about these things because if any Americans are watching, I'm addressing you. You're surrounded by the ocean, and plus you're impenetrable. I mean, the only time anyone tried to attack you directly was the Pearl Harbor thing, the Japanese, I believe. Everyone is armed to the teeth and so on. We know all this. So it's a place that has like they see the conflicts from afar. Okay, you Americans see things secondhand. Okay, you're not here in Europe, for example, or God forbid in the Middle East. But even in Europe, we've seen our fair share. I mean, Europe was devastated in World Wars One and Two. Okay, and after World War Two, the fact that American soil was not touched, apart from that brief attempt by the Japanese during the Pearl Harbor, that actually was what allowed the ascendancy of the U.S. Okay, because it was not directly destroyed during World War II. Okay, they suffered losses in terms of men when they joined the World War II effort. So a lot of the times the Americans are more apathetic about these things and do not mobilize until it's 2 minutes to midnight. It's the final hour, and then they finally wake up. But people I don't know. I don't want to say like me, like Greeks. I mean, just anything. Any European would be more. I mean, the closer you are to the action, the more incentive you have to do something about it. Okay, to be vigilant about the situation. Okay, I mean Greece here, so we're like on the border of Europe and the Middle East, so we're pretty damn close to this whole thing. So if something goes down with nukes in the Middle East, it would affect me much more directly than it would affect some guy living in Texas. Okay, so that's basically what he's saying here, but I had to add a little bit to it to show that compared to the rest of the world, Americans or something like Australians as well, Australia is even more far removed from it because the anti-Western powers don't hate Australians as much as they do Americans. So Australia probably is even more safe than America, but you know, Europe is a completely different ballgame. So you know, we're concerned, and it's big trouble. Like when something goes down soon, apart from the Middle East, of course, the next place that's going to be severely affected would be Europe. Russia and Europe. Europe more so than Russia.
Saw lots of Mexican and other foreign flags being flown in Los Angeles. I don't see any U.S. or Israeli flags being flown in Tehran. I think Iran is far more cohesive socially than the United States right now.
Yes.
So under those circumstances, I think we're on a very dangerous path.
Yeah.
But
well, the thing about the social cohesion, oh God, you can start an entire channel, let alone a video about this. America has been too strong to take it down directly. So you have a number of fifth columns inside it working non-stop around the clock to destroy it from within, basically. And now you're starting to see the final stages of that plan. But that's an entirely different video and conversation. But that's why also they're having all this internal strife, because they had these George Soros led George Soros style groups that are constantly agitating, like these far left bad actors that just think that, you know, capitalism is unnatural or whatever, you know. I mean, you have to be retarded to think that the communist idea of blanket equality is more in line with nature and natural law than the communist hierarchical model is. But, you know, there have to be retards in order to differentiate from smart people. You can't have everyone be a genius, otherwise we would all be the same. So, and you wouldn't tell the difference between who's who. So there always have to be dumb people and always have to be people that believe in bullshit ideologies, right? But anyway, long story short, there are groups that are trying to bring America down from within. So that's an added problem that the West has. When I say West, I mean primarily America, but all of the West in general, Europe and everything. But because America is like the mascot for the Western civilization in the past century, roughly. So all eyes on America. I'm very pro-American. I love America, but you know, it's in big trouble lately.
no one's listening. It's back to those three branches of government. But when things get bad, the American people are hurting, then we'll pay attention.
Yeah, all of a sudden when you start looking at gas prices and you're like, wait a second, why are we at war with Iran? Which is always interesting when it comes to the messaging there. I know that there have been some parallels drawn to the lead up to the war in Iraq, right, looking at weapons of mass destruction. Now you have Trump in this position where he keeps using this phrase, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, yet he then turned around and told reporters that he does not care.
Like I keep saying, I'm not taking sides with this. It's not black or white, okay? It isn't a good idea for the state of Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I actually agree. But the question is, how close were they? No, it's two questions. First question, were they actually trying to build a nuclear weapon? Or is that propaganda? Anti-Iranian propaganda. And second question is, how close were they really? Okay, so, you know, there's various opinions on this one, but, you know, look, I don't care that Tulsi Gabbard said Iran was close to having a nuclear weapon. He has to do what he has to do, whatever his donors told him to do.
About the testimony from his own Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who told Congress back in March that the U.S. has no evidence that Iran is creating a nuclear weapon.
Unreal.
We now have CNN admitting in a recent report that according to their sources in the intelligence community, not only is Iran not actively pursuing a nuclear weapon, but it would still be years away from being able to target anyone with one. So what does that tell us about the logic here? They keep repeating this nuclear weapon phrase. Well, you have
Ha! She must be a comedian. Logic? Ugh.
Iran over here saying, hey, we wanted to make a deal with you, right? Iran's supreme leader today saying we were not posing any kind of military threat while we were in these talks.
The Russians never had any plans to march west and conquer Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
The Russians are not looking for a war with NATO. What difference does that make? It makes no difference at all if you're perpetrating a lie, and that's what we've been doing. Say, oh no, these Russians are evil. They want to conquer everything.
Yeah, sure they are.
Well, the same people are making the same argument now about Iran. Truth does not matter. What matters...
Russians are evil. That's another beauty. Putin has the patience of a saint, in reality. That's the actual truth of the matter. He should have done what he did in 2022. He should have done it since 2014. If you know, you know. Okay?
Is whether or not people in the United States feel the pain. Now, here's one other aspect of this thing we need to take into consideration. Our borders have been open. We have millions and millions of people inside this country about whom we know nothing.
Yeah.
And we know that corruption...
I mean, what's up with that? What the hell's that all about? That, seriously, oh my God. Oh boy. So many videos I want to make about so many of these things. Coming soon.
Criminality, terrorism, all of those things blend nicely. What could happen inside our country?
I wonder.
You could wake up tomorrow morning and find out that a mall in Seattle was blown up and killed several hundred people. You could find out that someone placed a low-yield nuclear weapon in proximity to Washington. We have no way of knowing.
This is crazy. This just sounds like the worst-case scenario, like a from a Hollywood movie script. You know, some, I don't know. Like what was it called? True Lies. That Schwarzenegger one. That James Cameron helmed the Schwarzenegger film where he was a spy and he was trying to stop some Middle Eastern terrorist guy. Jamie Lee Curtis played his wife in that one. Yeah, it's like reality more and more is starting to resemble one of those Hollywood scripts. It's crazy. Like a Tom Clancy novel or something.
Now, people say, oh, well, they could never do that.
Oh yes, they
How
could.
many times have we heard that something like that could never happen?
Always. That's what people always say that. You know, oh, that could never happen. I'm sure they said after World War One. It's like no. You know, Hitler is not. I mean, Hitler's another rabbit hole, by the way. You know, that's a parenthesis. Now that I mention him, the point with him is like he's another Putin figure in the sense that he's been demonized about 457 times to make him look like 500 times worse than he actually was, and the compounding effect, like 80 years since then, has made millions of NPCs thinking like he's the worst thing ever. But anyway, he was not the best thing ever either. You know, he really did want to make war. I mean, he had his reasons and so on. It was like partially defensive because he wanted to stop the spread of Bolshevism, which is legitimately the worst thing ever. But so he was the second worst thing ever. So you know, you got to be a bad boy to stop the worst thing of all time. You probably need to become the second worst thing of all time in order to successfully stop the number one, the legitimately number one worst thing of all time, which was Bolshevism. So yeah, he had to play dirty. But the point is, what I'm saying is, they were building the wall. He was ignoring the treaties or whatever that they'd signed to get after World War One, so they can stop Germany from rebuilding its military. He just ignored all that. He kept building the military up, and the world was like, no, that's okay. He's just trying to do like a peace through strength thing. Okay, he's not really going to do anything, but he did. So you can never say, oh, that's never going to happen, oh, that's not going to happen, and blah, blah, blah. We must always be vigilant, because if it can happen, it probably will. All right?
I hope it doesn't come to those things. But nobody is thinking through this thing very clearly. When I wrote the piece that was published in Zero Hedge about how to achieve peace and argued for convening a great power peace conference and going to the United Nations asking for an immediate ceasefire and telling the Israelis that we would not supply them any further as long as they were murdering people in Gaza, that had to stop immediately. Why? I wrote all of those things because you have to have a conference involving the United States, Russia, China, India, and I would argue Brazil as a great power in Latin America. And I would say they have to sit there and arbitrate these disputes and end all of this. Well, that would mean that Israel would be compelled to behave like a normal state in the region.
Good luck with that one.
That's unacceptable to Israel, therefore it's unacceptable to us. This is a war about not just...
Wait, are you suggesting that the US and Israel are joined at the hip for some reason? That's a very radical opinion, isn't it now?
Israel's regional hegemony, which it is. It's also about financial hegemony in the hands of the United States, directed from New York City and the banks of Great Britain and the City of London. They failed to rip apart Russia, failed to destroy the state, failed to create chaos, and failed to exploit the resources. Now they've turned their attention to the Middle East. What do they want? They want the oil fields.
They will always fail to destroy Russia. This is a giant topic. I can write a whole book about this one, but yeah, the cabal has always failed, has always wanted to, but always failed to destroy Russia. The closest it got is when they were successful in the 1917 October Revolution, where the Bolsheviks took over power, but still, Russia bounced back. Okay, communism imploded from within because it's the most anti-reality thing that has ever existed, has ever been spawned by human mind. So of course, the fact that it goes against every logical thing, every natural law, of course it was bound to just destroy itself. Organically, naturally, it was going to happen at some point. But yeah, so Russia bounced back now, and under the leadership of Putin, and even when Putin passes away, he has left strong structures in place that will continue his legacy. So Russia is always going to be strong. Okay? So it's so true what he's saying, that the cabal can never destroy Russia. They've always had their eyes on their sights on Russia for some reason. I have a lot of theories about that one, but this is not the video to talk about that. But yeah, Russia is always impervious to cabal fuckery.
Control the region. They have a terrible obstacle in their path right now. It's called Iran. The Iranians have said, no, we are a great civilizational power. We are not going to surrender.
They
will
are.
not turn our country over to you any more than the Russians would turn Russia over to the same financial interests in the West.
Yeah, Iran has got a very unfortunate leadership in the past, 45, 46 years. But as a people, it's great. It's a great ancient culture, their literature, everything. It's pretty amazing. Okay? And they're beautiful, like visually, like they're good. I like them. I just resonate with them. But, you know, ever since 1979, there's been a problem there with the government.
So this is another replay of the same failed strategy. And how many regime change operations do we have to run before somebody finally figures out this doesn't work?
No
I don't
kidding.
have the answer, but I can tell you right now, everyone in Washington is rotten to the core when it comes to this business. Why? Because of money. Everyone is...
Gee, I never would have thought. I thought all politicians, including America and all around the world, were doing it all for the people. And they were all selfless. Gee, I have cognitive dissonance now. I never would have thought that what he said was true.
Greedy. Everyone wants more cash. The retired 4-stars, the active 4-stars, the senators, the congressmen, the president and his entourage in the White House. Everything is about money. And same thing is true for the military-industrial complex, these industries. Is true for the media.
What drives me crazy and confuses the hell out of me is Trump is a billionaire in his own right. Why, oh why, does he need donors? I still haven't understood this one, maybe because I've been too busy for many years, writing very laborious books. I haven't had the time that a regular person has, like to do extra research on things that I want to know. So I'm kind of lacking on this particular thing. I haven't researched it much with how the politics worked with the donors and the PACs and everything. Can someone not finance their own campaign if they have enough money? I mean, the Adelson gave him 100 million or something. I mean, 100 million is change for Trump. He's got billions. So I don't understand why he couldn't provide that money out of his own pocket. Surely he has 100 million. So anyway, that's a mystery to me. You would think that a billionaire president couldn't be bought. I thought that was the entire fucking point. Anyway.
Everyone is about money. So truth is in short supply.
No kidding.
And it is interesting too, exactly as you were noting there. I'm thinking, okay, we keep going through this, and at the same time, the American people, we keep voting for the guy who is telling us, hey, no new wars, we're going to end the endless wars, right? We're going to put an end to what has essentially been U.S. foreign policy as we know it. And then not only do they never do it, but we have this growing multipolar world, right? It's no secret that the U.S. has been wanting to target Iran for a while. They are targeting Russia. They would love to target China at some point.
I mean, look, I sharply disagree with the anti-Russian sentiment in America, in much of American politics, and a lot of European, NATO as well is very anti-Russia. They're stuck on the Cold War mentality, which is a thing of the past. Okay, they need to upgrade their software on that one. But the anti-Iran thing, I can partially understand it. I mean, I'm sure that the intelligence community, the CIA and so on, are very much aware of things that countries like Iran, who do sponsor a lot of terrorism, that is the biggest sponsor of terrorism around the world, I'm sure they know things that we don't. Okay, I'm sure they know things that the eminent Colonel Macgregor doesn't know. Okay, even. So I'm not fully criticizing Trump here for that move, for his move, for wanting to, for blatantly saying, look, there's no way I'm going to let Iran make a bomb. Okay, Iran, a state like Iran, this crazy theocracy that openly says death to America, clearly you wouldn't want someone like that to have the bomb. Okay, so that's not entirely unreasonable, but it's just the way they're going about it. Okay, I'm pretty sure that even if Iran was not under the current leadership, Israel, and their big brother America still would have seen it as an obstacle. Okay, they would have found some other excuse to weaken Iran, I'm pretty sure.
So when it comes back home to what this means for the Trump administration and for the Americans' trust in the Trump administration, where do you think that stands, especially as we start getting to that point where gas prices start rising and people start looking around and going, wait a second, I thought that I voted for the opposite of this, and yet here I am
Yeah,
stuck in
everyone
what
did.
could possibly be another situation where you have American men coming home in body bags because they were sent to fight in yet another endless war that we were told we weren't supposed to be getting into.
Americans have to come to the realization that this dichotomy, Democrats and Republicans, is meaningless. We're really dealing with a uniparty. We're dealing with an entirely corrupted, dysfunctional system. This thing that we call democracy in the United States is a scam. It's not real. It's just not real. When Louis XVI was crowned king,
So true. It's very sad. Very difficult to accept, but true. I mean, I've known it, but like I said, even very learned, knowledgeable people like Alex Jones was a massive Trump fan, and he kept insisting that Trump was an outsider and the real deal. I guess he was, till about 5 minutes ago.
King of France. People in the streets in Paris and other cities said, "Long live Louis XVI, as long as the price of bread doesn't rise." And in 1789, there was a revolution because the French people in Paris could not afford to buy bread. It spread like wildfire across France. Now, pick a commodity, whatever you want in the United States. Pick any place in the United States, and you've got a very similar situation right now. We don't have any authoritative media. People go to people like you, Rachel, and to others in the alternative media environment to try and find out what's the truth. Because if you go to the mainstream, just go through the MSNBC, CNN, Fox, what are you hearing? It's the same narrative. Gosh, does that tell you something? We better wake up. We need truth. Where are we going to get it?
Operation Mockingbird. I mean, it's not only the fact that roughly 80% of these publications are owned by the Zionists, by rich Jewish families. Also, you have the CIA being involved. And maybe the CIA with the Project Mockingbird, which I don't believe, and many people don't believe, it was discontinued when it was exposed in the 70s. It continued again under another name, all right? Like it went completely black, all right? Maybe they even have more of an influence, and they use the Jewish people that own these newspapers and TV channels as convenient scapegoats, but in truth, it's probably the CIA that gives them the talking points. It's an amazing, it's very hard to unravel this thing, okay? But certainly, the mainstream news is not. It's fake news. Trump is so right about that, you know. If he did anything as far as, you know, like doing something great and positive for mankind, is that he exposed the fake news like no one else before him. That was, I mean, and if that was his mission in life, so be it. I mean, that's good enough for me. But the Iran thing, we'll see how it plays out.
You're certainly not going to get it from the United States government. The notion that we dominate the skies everywhere is absurd. This is a mix of arrogance, self-delusion, wound up together that is taking us down this dark path into a fight that we are making worse by the day.
Yeah.
And anyone who thinks that the Russians and the Chinese, and for that matter, many other powers, I don't need to go through all the Muslim powers, are all going to sit there quietly and watch us on behalf of Israel utterly destroy them.
No.
In other words, Iran and anybody else in the region.
No.
They're wrong. We're only at the beginning of this thing.
Yeah.
That's why I said we need a great power conference. Let's stop this before it begins. But nobody wants to. The three branches of governments refuse to.
Yeah, good luck with stopping this before it begins. First of all, it's already begun. Yeah. Anyway, I'll detail these things in a subsequent videos, I guess. But yeah, it's already begun. World War III has already begun. Many months ago, actually.
So where are the American people? They're not awake yet. They're too busy doing what they always do. As soon as they can pick up a six-pack of beer, go home and watch the game, that's what they're going to do. When they can't do that, they'll pay attention.
Yeah, there is certainly a lot at stake here all around, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today to...
Okay, so it's finished there. Yeah, that was about it basically, and I don't know. I can just keep going on about this because it's not just another video. This is not just another reaction video. We're literally talking about a World War III, a nuclear World War III that is more or less, it practically cannot be stopped now. Okay, I mean, I think he's being a little bit naive in thinking that he can, stop it before it begins. Stop what? It's already begun. Okay, we haven't seen it fully bloom to its complete fullness of what it could be, but the process has begun now. Like the first domino has fallen. You can't. I mean, unless you had a time machine. I mean, the only thing is a time machine that can make this stop. Okay, Israel attacked first a few days ago. This cannot be reversed now, I don't think. Okay, so strap yourselves in. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this and got a new perspective on things and learned a few things. And if you feel it helped you, please pass it along and subscribe if you haven't. And I'll see you soon. Oh, and also, of course, I always have to remind people to come and say hi on Twitter because I like hanging out there with my buddy Elon Musk. So I'll see you soon.